welcome back. I'm Shiko,
I'm Nyam.
And I'm Gadoni.
and this is
Okay,
Kiasi.
Imeni bamba
Imeni
bamba.
bamba.
Ho, 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 ho.
What is this episode? Gadani
Right?
means. Anyway. So, guys, something exciting last year was happening around this time of our lives. Last year, June, in the beginning of June, we were all in LA
Living la
living our
vida
best
loca.
lives.
Right?
Literally living
Man.
la vida loca. Eh, Gathani, what were some of your favorite memories when we were all in LA? Just for
First.
context, I know we've mentioned it before, but we were there for a wedding.
Yes.
Our
Stepsister's
stepsister
wedding.
was getting married a year ago. So
Congratulations to
that's why
them
we were
first
in
of
LA.
all, also.
Yeah, happy anniversary.
For
Shout
sure.
out to them.
So for me, it was number one, just being all of us in LA. Because like we hadn't seen each other in so long. So it was the most exciting thing. First, I'd had drama with the Uber driver. I've even had just a throwback. Anyway, forget that nigga.
Indeed.
Throw that here.
You were scammed by an Uber driver. You have to tell the story.
Yeah, I didn't tell the story last. Anyway, I was scammed by an Uber driver. I was
Did she?
taking out a suitcase, and
I
then
don't
this
think so.
idiot decided I scratched his car, and then he asked for I think $120 for insurance. This, let me tell you, he's writing a movie. May that movie never be made. Anyway.
I think, to be honest, the
Welcome to Hollywood, bitch.
He was such a nice guy. Like the conversation was so great all the way from the airport to the Airbnb. So for him to like switch up like that was also one of the bigger shocks, honestly.
But then we're told after that what normally happens is they're that talkative because then they can tell you're not from around and they can take advantage of you. So if you're going to LA, be careful. Those people, be the people who sit in the back and be quiet. Don't talk to them. And then don't let them take the suitcase out themselves because they're gonna steal your money. Anyway, the food. I remember day one. There's another egg I ate. Let me tell you when I cracked that. The way the yolk did. There's a picture Shiko took. Let me tell you that egg is of dreams. Anyway, the other thing I liked about
That whole
LA,
restaurant that we went to, we were on Sunset, right?
was it
Yeah, we
Sunset?
were on
Day
Sunset
one.
Boulevard. And that brunch place was just so good.
It was so
Like,
good.
I think even my meal was so simple. I had like scrambled eggs and like an arugula salad or something. But when I tell you, I was
It was
like, oh my gosh.
so good. Everything
What
was
did
so
they
good.
put in this magic?
And then the other thing I
Yeah.
loved about LA was how everyone has a dog and they go everywhere. I was just like, this is the life I should be living. But yeah, the food was so much fun. I think that there was a lot of firsts. Like when you've gone to a space for the first time together, it's like when you're like, look, the Hollywood sign. Look, that excitement of sharing that experience with you guys. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. What was your memory, Shiko? What's your most
My
favorite?
memory was just being all together. I really liked when we were hiking. That was really fun. So what we decided, I don't even know who we thought we were. We went to a bottomless brunch, me and Yam.
We were
Let me
all
tell
We
there.
were
you,
the
we had
bottomless
Only
of the
you were the
brunch.
bottomless. We were all there.
I know me and Yam are the only ones who decided to bottomless it.
And
When I
bottomless
tell
sent
you,
you?
we had
What?
like no. Let me tell you, that server was so organized. As soon as your glass is like halfway, he's already there with a new
Top.
whatever. Topped up real quick with a quickness. And when you go to bottomless places, they're usually stingy. That place was not stingy
They
at
were not
all.
stingy at
Like,
all. And
for
it was
sure.
like that mimosa was less orange juice than
For sure.
where. Wow, what a time.
It was maybe 10% orange juice and the rest was champagne. Perfectly balanced mimosa. But when it's bottomless and we've decided we're going for brunch and then going to a hike
And it's
afterwards.
summer, so the sun.
And it's summer.
Y'all are crazy.
Where it was like 90 something degrees.
It was wild.
And yeah, and that hike was a hike. It's not for just laughs. we were going up the
Up
mountain.
the mountain, down the
When I tell you we
valley,
hiked the
when they
oh
land, and in the
ending
sea.
the
And can
sea.
you imagine we wanted to do the crazier hike? It's Nyam's friend who saved us.
Actually, we were going
Yeah,
to
because we were like,
wait. We
we're
were
gonna
going to
do
walk
all
past the
these.
Hollywood sign. We would have died there.
I know, because the hike we originally wanted to do was the one that takes us well to the Hollywood sign, and you're almost touching it. But she was like, do this other one because it's a little easier
It's more
and
scenic. It's
you'll still
shorter.
get really good views. Exactly. I think in total it was like 2 miles up. Was it 2 miles up or something like that?
Who remembers?
Um,
It was suffering.
when I
Is what
tell
it was.
you, we, me, I was suffering. Me, I was suffering because of the mimosas.
You guys are
You know,
mad.
when you feel like
Hey,
the hotness of the sun, the mimosas, the elevation, we were dying, dying. But we did it.
you
We did
did.
indeed.
Yeah.
Best
Nyam, what
time.
are some of your favorite memories?
So I think, like you guys, it was just all of us being together. I think it had been a while since we had an adventure together as well. So that was fun. I think also just all of us being in a new place together. I mean, Shiko had been to LA before, but I think even the experiences we were doing was stuff that you haven't done yourself.
Yeah.
So that was fun. I think one of like my core memories, it was, when we drove down Rodeo Drive. We didn't get out of the car, but we just like gave ourselves our own tour of like the different stores, just like
Yeah.
rubbish. I don't know where that
Shiko tour
video
guide.
is, but I think
Shiko
that
tour
was
guide
like
is the best thing.
Chico was our tour guide.
When she saw the bus
Just
and she's like, they ain't got nothing on me.
she was like, we don't need a tour bus. Let me show you Rodeo Drive.
She said, this statue.
I have videos. And let me tell you, I gave them history. Ask me where the history came from. My head. But that's all that matters.
For
They're like,
sure.
this sign has been here since 1995.
Correct.
They actually put it up when I was born. Anyway.
Bruh. Let me tell you, even we were going to the stars and we were just like, when we reached there, we were like, nah. But Chico was like, this is the Chinese theater.
Because I was telling Akina Gadhani, like, the Hollywood Walk of Fame is something you have to see. However, it's the ghetto. It really is the ghetto. Like, you walk around, there's so many homeless people, there's someone trying to sell you something, there's those people who are performing on the streets. So I was like, we can park the car and walk, or we could just drive through it.
Yeah.
And when we're driving, I remember even Nyam was like, they really hype this place up.
We were like, it's not like what we see on the TVs. What?
You ain't.
It's like, I
You
promise you,
ain't
after
it.
those people put their stars, they don't go back.
Ever. Ever.
That's
They've
for
never
sure.
gone back again.
Nah.
Another thing that I think for me, another core memory was just the car rides. We would be blasting music, listening to like our dance hall, and then like all of a sudden you see the Hollywood sign, and we're like, oh my gosh, it's right there, and it's just like, I don't know, spending time with you guys was a special.
It was so
Such
great.
a special.
I feel like also road tripping, we are experts at road tripping because we were talking with Nyam, we listened to Bruno
For sure.
Mars, and it just reminds us of the Nola trip as well, where it's just like we were blasting the music and it's just like a vibe.
Yeah. And then because our road trip was so long, we also had like a podcast sesh. Remember
Oh
we
my
like
God,
binged one
yeah.
of the podcasts.
Yeah, that podcast was
Yeah.
The
lit.
crime one.
A murder
Yeah,
one.
I can't tell you anything that happened, but it was
It
lit
was
then.
lit.
Yeah, we were really immersed in that
We were
story.
really in that story. Yeah, for
Yeah,
real. I
I
can't
think we
even tell.
probably listened to like about like maybe
I think
6
it was like
hours.
8
For sure.
episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
it was so much
Of the
fun.
podcast.
Man, those were good times.
Anyway, I know. And then one day we decided to go to all the restaurants that we wanted to, so we hit in and out like within 2 hours. On
Yeah,
the last day,
we
we were
literally
like, we have
ate
2 hours.
for 2 hours non-stop.
We planned the map. We went on the map and we were like, okay, where are we starting? We had in and out, we had tacos, we had donuts, we had everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, we
within
really
2
ate.
hours. By the time we were reaching the end, we were like, I can't anymore. But all of it was so tamu.
All of it. And then did
So
we still
good.
go and eat chips at the airport?
Shiko had like some kind of chowder also, like a soup.
I mean, we're
Oh
not
yeah,
serious
I had
people.
soup. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh my gosh.
those were lit
An
times.
adventure it
Anyway,
was.
that was a fun time. That was a fun time. Yam, you got the wheel for us?
Yes, I do. Are y'all ready?
Let's spin it.
Like a record spin, 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 like
You should sing another part of the song today. I feel like you deny people the nice part of twist me, turn me like crazy.
Excuse me. This is my department. Ask Nyam how someone was like when is spin coming back. They don't care about twisting.
It's true. Someone asked me, they were like, so when are you guys coming back with spin? I said, wow.
Yes. I'm telling you, every episode I will remind you that you guys tried to change this song. Anyway.
We have landed on my wall.
On my wall.
So good.
Gadoni, star yourself.
On my wall currently, I want to thank myself.
Do it, girl. You better snoop the hell out of this.
Yeah, I feel like where I am currently, I have chosen myself a lot, and I'm very proud of myself for choosing myself. And so I've been taking time to make time for myself. And the other day, like there was something someone asked me to do, and I was like, no, because it didn't work for me, and I normally don't do that. And so on my wall is myself for prioritizing myself and what I want and what I need. And she's that babe. She's me.
Period.
Gang.
And that's on that.
You are her.
And that's on Mary and her little lamb that went to school. Bam.
Did
Mary's
Mary's
lamb
lamb
went
go
to
to school?
Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. It followed her to school one day. Guys,
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, you're right, girl. You're right.
what are we? Oh my God.
I was just like, what?
When? I didn't know the
When?
lamp went to
Yeah,
school.
I was
Guys,
like, wasn't he just
that's
white
the
as
whole
snow?
point
What
of
happened?
Mary's lamb,
He followed her to school one day.
which was against the
see.
rules. And then you know what he did? He
Okay.
made the children laugh and play to see a lamb at school. Gang, you guys, what were you doing with your
Hey,
nursery rhymes?
Wow, I
Isn't
forgot
it?
all those verses. You know,
For
us guys, we
sure.
didn't have time to sing all the verses.
You just to say fleeces white as snow, and then you move on.
And period, that's it.
Ah,
Yeah,
you
even
are
me,
you
I
are team
say.
Momo Jessica. Ebu just chill first, even. Let's just
And what's the other one? Not Kama Chameleon, what's the other one?
Baba
my
Black sheep is what you're
little
calling.
coconut.
No.
No, she was a
Coconut.
Oh, na
Coconut.
I'm
little
a nut.
cocoa
I'm
branch.
crazy.
I'm a nut. I'm a nut.
I'm a
I'm
nut.
crazy.
I'm crazy.
That was Chico's jam. The day Chico came and told us, it's not Baba Black Sheep, it's Momo Jessica. I said, wow. Anyway.
On your wall is you. I
On-
love that for you.
On my wall is me. Chico, who's on your wall?
Oh, me?
Is
well,
it Jessica?
If I could have two people, please.
Happy
Sure.
thanks.
The first one is Blue Ivy.
All right.
Honestly,
Okay.
Blue Ivy has literally just been killing it. She's on the Renaissance tour. She's been dancing with her mother. Have you guys been seeing? If
For
you're on
sure.
TikTok, I'm on Beyonce Talk. So literally, I don't even know what the point of going to the concert is because I feel like I've already watched the whole
For
show
sure. Through clips.
on TikTok through clips.
The point is to wear the
Blue
shorts
Ivy has been
and take
dancing.
pictures.
You're right. She's been dancing with her mom, and the first time she came out, I was like, oh, this is really cool. She's like super clean, but you could tell she was still so much in her head. And then the more she's performed, I think now this is her fourth performance that she's done. You really can see the growth with the choreography she got, but like you can tell like she's coming into her own with how she does the moves, which makes me so happy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I see the growth. This is dance coaching me. I'm like, I see the growth. And she's getting more comfortable on stage. She's adding a little more of her personality instead of just doing the moves, which is just great to see. So she's been really inspirational. I mean, she's only 11, I think, and to be performing for crowds of like 80,000 or whatever it is, like that's wild. That's really big on her, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's really big on her. And then there's also another dancer, that a bald one of Beyonce's dancers, who like is a part of that mix, like when Blue Ivy is whatevering, and she's always like hyping her on and cheering her on. And
Yeah.
um she's on my wall. But the other person that's on my wall is Corona Maria Boccaccio.
Oh.
This girl, honestly, like I've been having a hectic week. Um, but Corona, like her senses of just knowing what I need are
Mm.
superior this week. Like even now she's just sitting over here on my legs.
Oh,
She knows when
Marish.
I'm sad, and she'll just come and like sit with me and like hug me and cuddle me. And she she just brings so much joy to this household, honestly. And
To our
this
lives.
week I've been calling her my best friend.
So
Best
Oh,
friend
cute.
Roche Bosch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's who's on my wall. Korosh and Blue.
That's cool.
so good.
Yeah.
Those are some cool posters. Even me, I want. Make for me.
So
I got
good.
you, I got you.
You, what's on your
Yeah.
wall? Who or what?
Can I also have two?
Sure.
Sure.
So, one who is on my wall, and she's called Angela. We went to primary school together, but she runs this organization called Heels for Pads. She's just become like a really, I mean, her goal has been advocacy for periods and period poverty. And actually, like this past week, they were closing down a pop-up shop they had. So one of the organizations that she runs, they you can basically donate your heels or buy heels, and the purchase that you make will buy pads for a girl for 1 year of school. So I went to their pop-up shop. I think it was the last day they were having it at Nairobi Street Kitchen. And initially I was like, maybe I'll just buy some merch or whatever. But then I decided to just I tried on a couple of shoes and I saw like a pair that I liked. So yeah, I bought shoes and I was like, that's gonna be my pad donations. But I've also been following her on LinkedIn. She's also like a thought leader. She's a good writer. So she has some really nice inspirational um an inspirational newsletter, just like asking what will your last post be. I think that was one of her posts last time, just a bit of introspection and what do you really want to accomplish with your life. So I want to big her up for that. I think she's really killing the game in that way. And I love when my peers inspire me also. It's just pretty cool.
Yeah. What are the
And
shoes? Tell us what the shoes are.
so they're called Heels for Pads. That's the name of the organization. Oh,
No,
my
the
The
ones
ones
shoes.
you
you
bought.
bought. Yeah.
Oh, I bought the nini
They're cute.
snake print nini
Wow.
heels.
Strappy
If I'm very
sandals.
honest, okay, my bad, strappy sandals. But if I'm honest, I feel like I'm not a shopper, so I think part of the thing that inspired me to buy was because I knew it was going to a good cause, and also more and more I don't find that
Even snake print, I've never seen you.
exactly. So after I bought them, I was like, nyam, just like, where are you going to wear these shoes? But in my
You're
mind,
kind
I was
of
like,
you're a
okay,
facilitator.
not with open toe sandals. But either way, I was like, I'm in my mind, I was like, it's pads for someone. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And also, I've I've started to feel like I need to be a bit more deliberate about, I mean, I think the three of us are thrifters anyway. So, just like more sustainable clothing. And that's not to say you shouldn't buy new shoes. You can still buy new shoes, but there are also many pairs of great shoes that someone just didn't want to wear or wore lightly for a minute or two that you can buy. I think in my mind, I was like, it's ticking two boxes for me in terms of sustainable fashion as well as period
Supporting the cause.
poverty. So, so I'm really excited about that. And then the other person on my wall is oh, Ukikuyu, Calandria Roland. Kelly
Wow.
Roland.
Did you see her dancing?
Is that her name?
Yeah.
Hey, I saw yesterday.
Fam.
So fire.
I was like, what?
Hello, Kelly. Move over, Beyonce. Girl, I don't know. She's just
She was
really
giving.
killing it. She's been giving me so much life. I mean, like her fashion choices. Kelly is really killing the game for me. I saw her performance, I think in London or in the UK, wherever she was performing. But I was just like, people really do be sleeping on Kalish. Kalish. Yeah. I mean,
You said
that's someone who
nicknames
was
today.
texting. I'm like, Kelly was out here texting people on Excel. She's above us, by the way.
That was rude. You're rude for that. You're dirty. You're dirty for that, but she's on your wall,
It's
so
the
it's
truth.
fine.
It's the truth. I'm really feeling her. I'm feeling her style. I'm feeling her vibe. There's just like a maturity. I'm feeling her content. I'm feeling her music. Kelly for life, man.
She's a vibe. She's a vibe.
Mm.
And everything she does, honestly, just feels so effortless.
True,
like it
man.
just looks like she just put these clothes on and it just fit.
Doesn't feel manufactured or like there was a stylist.
No,
Gishes.
I know.
Hey,
She never
Calandria.
misses.
She hit after hit after hit. I mean, she's
Period.
Destiny's Child.
Wow. All you women, independent. Throw your hands up at me.
Well,
Nikulize. Actually, I've
and
decided.
she found a soldier too.
Right?
Who's going to stand up for her.
And can he pay her bills? Can he pay her telephone
For sure,
bills?
Pay her
he can pay the
telephone.
telephone bill.
Period. And she still has her girlfriends.
True. I bet you she caters to him.
Yeah.
I'm unable.
Even not only on his birthday, every day because it's his day.
Hey,
Time.
we all be
Excuse
survivors.
me. I'm quitting
May
you
we all be
people. I want
survivors.
to put a second person on my wall
Okay.
because you
Okay.
both had
Go
two
off.
people. I've thought
Are they
about it.
bootylicious?
It's gonna be awkward because of who I'm saying, but I want to put my coach on the wall.
He has a nice butt. It's okay.
He does.
He does.
He does have a nice butt. He's a rugby man, so I mean, I guess. I'm sorry.
All rugby men have the nicest
Yeah,
butts.
they have nice butts. So anyway, I want to put my
Swear.
coach on my wall because I feel like this year I feel like I'm transcending in my gym journey. Like there's a space I have entered that even people are like, oh my god, you're so different and you're so, but I feel like a lot of it has to do with his attitude and his understanding of how I need to be coached. And so I want to big up Joshi, my nigga, my boy, because like he's just like, I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, so he's on my wall also because I feel like there's a space. Part of why I'm on my own wall is because of my gains in the gym, and I don't think I can give myself full credit because there's a lot of what he is and his attitude that has played a role in how I have transcended in that space. So to my coach
Hi,
and his
then.
cute ass. And to answer your question, he is bootylicious. Because listen, if you watch my stories on Instagram, I don't think you are ready for that jelly. I'm sorry. Anyway,
Oh my gosh.
because of the squats I'm doing. It's for the squats I'm doing
cannot.
anyway. Chico. Go off.
I cannot. Yeah, it's for the squats. It's for the squats. So this episode is going to be a continuation of last week's episode where we started the period talk. It's about to get bloodier and ew.
Yes, explode
Yes.
those uteruses.
Why did they say that?
Explode
No,
them.
It's
and
about
not
to get
you.
bloody. It's not an ew. It's not an ew. I need to get out of the habit of saying that because it's life. It's normal. But yes, we are about to talk more about the period conversation. We have a guest on this episode.
Hey.
We will introduce her when we shift to that part. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the continuation of our period talk.
Yay. Okay. Janet, thank you for being here. It's really fun to have you. So, my first question for anyone who doesn't know who you are, I always like to ask people to introduce themselves because what you think is important might not be what I think is important. So, other than say your bio, how would you introduce yourself to someone who doesn't know who you are?
Wow. Somebody who doesn't know who I am. I like to establish, I think, you know, what I've done. I try to capture what I've done and maybe what I'm quote unquote known for. So, a media personality, which is an easy way to just establish different forms of media, an advocate for social impact, um, a woman evolving into really like, I don't know, a version of myself that I'm getting proud of every day. Um, and a boy mom, which is, you know, which is something else. I think that's how I'd put it. And yeah, just a work in progress who's just leaning in more and more to so many facets of myself that I'm still unlocking, but I'm just not as afraid to do it anymore. So that feels pretty good.
We
Awesome.
love that.
So dope. On social justice that you've just mentioned, I know you do a lot of work in like period poverty, destigmatizing periods, trying to make it look like positive. What is it that made you get into that space?
It was a story I interacted with when I was in the newsroom as a news anchor, which is 10 years ago today that I interacted with that story on a program that I was hosting on TV, on Citizen TV, which is, you know, a big regional station. And it was the first time a lot of us had come face to face with what period poverty means because it showcased girls in a pretty remote and hard to reach area in Kenya, in Marigat in Baringo, and it was highlighting the products, the very unsanitary products they have to use because they can't afford sanitary pads. And they linked that to the fact that they many times have to miss out on class. And over the years, that really affects their education. A lot of them either drop out or end up becoming teen moms, etc. So it was the first time I think a lot of people had seen the link between period poverty and a disruption to a girl's life. And I was so triggered. And I think that story just changed my life in the biggest way. And I just kept trying to lean into how do we try to address this issue till my boss was like, okay, what do you want to do? Because you're at my office every day asking me what we need to do. So I came up with Inua Dada, which translates to uplift a sister. And then that was it. I just wanted to keep mainstreaming the conversation while also trying to get access to a lot of these girls. And here we are. It's the heart of it is pretty much the same, but the intersectionalities have really come into light. We now have a center where we've hired, underserved women, where we're making sanitary products. And but the biggest part of what we do is the advocacy. And that's why I'm big on storytelling, because I saw what that one story did, even for the conversation in the country. It pushed CSOs and the government to start introducing the menstrual health policy, which was launched in 2020. The budgetary allocation was increased. So the power of storytelling and the power of mainstreaming otherwise taboo conversations. So I've been doing that and I've never really stopped doing it. I left TV, I still do it on my digital platforms, and much like what you guys I do on this platform, I just try and make it conversational and as inclusive as possible. So that's how I came into it and that's how I've stayed. And I think I will forever be here. I've made peace with it.
That's awesome though. It's such an important aspect that our society, like majority of us women, go through. So on a more personal level, what was your relationship like with your first time? Like, what did your parents sit you down and explain the process to you? I know in Africa we don't necessarily discuss these things. Were you shocked one day in school, like what is going on? Like, share your story with us.
But I think my story also subconsciously led me to do this because I was a kid. Guys, I was 10 till today. I know. So not only was I shocked, my parents were shocked. They were like, wait, wait, wait. What do you mean? Because I remember the day distinctly. I woke up, it was a school day, and I felt like it was a bloodbath in my bed. So I was like, oh, I'm probably dying because I don't know what's going on. It was the most traumatic feeling ever. So I ran to my parents' bedroom. I was like, I don't know what's going on. There's blood everywhere. And my mom was like, oh, so she was trying to be calm. She's like, okay, I'm just gonna need you to take a shower. She was probably like, take a shower so I can think.
Yeah, exactly. How am I
Like, I
going to
need
do
time.
this?
She's 10.
Like, I need a minute. So I showered, and then it was just a very quick summary. She just said, you started something called your period. And this is literally what she said. Don't let boys touch you. I'm like, wow.
On
Um,
brand.
on brand, right? On brand for our
For our mothers, yes,
For
yes.
sure.
beloved parents. Don't let boys touch you. Here's a pad. Here's how to wear it. We'll talk more when you come home. So that was my first time. So it was very traumatic for me. Um, and I went to school, and one other girl in class noticed I was walking funny. And she's the only other girl who'd started her period. Harleen, I remember that was her name. We were friends. And she said, oh my God, have you started your period? I said, oh yeah, that's what mom was calling it. She was saying something like period. Then she told me, okay, first of all, you're walking funny. She told me you're walking like a duck. So let's teach you how to walk with pads on. So she literally taught me how to walk. I don't know. I think she started it a year before she was 11. Also an early bloomer. And she kind of helped me just make peace with it and say, there's nothing wrong with it. You just have to remember to change your pad. So that was my first time, and it was very traumatic. And any boy who breathed near me, I was like, don't come near me.
And that's the time where pads were like thick. That's when they were thick, thick.
Yeah,
Thick.
They were thick.
Yeah.
they were.
So you have to make room.
My period journey it's not been the best because I still have endometriosis. I mean, I've very painful, very heavy periods. I'm back on birth control because of it. I told my gynecologist, you're the one who said if I have children, maybe. He said, I told you maybe. I didn't say it's a guarantee. So I still have a very problematic period. And so in that sense, I think periods have just always been part of my life. So there's the issue around our body and health, and then there's the issue around the push for menstrual justice, which is like access to products and information. So that is my first
That's
time
nice.
story.
I'm curious,
Very traumatic.
did your mom sit you down after and she was like, we'll talk about it later? Did she actually sit you down and tell you something?
You know what I remember about that evening is my dad congratulating me. So I was mortified.
Wow.
Like
Congratulations, you are now a woman.
Yeah.
verbatim. It's like, you're now a woman. I'm like, okay, ew, no. Um, And I think my brothers were also told, act normal, just say congrats. And my sister.
Oh no! But you know what? That's also so progressive as much as it's very cringy. The fact that men were able to acknowledge that you had a period, I feel like for me, like it was never acknowledged.
Really, for you guys, it was, I'm sure your experiences are probably vastly different.
Exactly. But you mentioned you're also a boy mom. So, how do you go about educating your boys about these matters? Because they're in school, they're about to get to that age where all the girls are starting their periods.
Yeah, they're still pretty young, but I mean, kids nowadays, I don't know if it's the pregnant care we took. I don't know what it is, but they adjust. They have a lot of agency and a lot of information, and they're constantly processing. So they're 7 and 4. They're pretty young, but when they've seen pads, I tell them, well, now they know it's mom diapers because I'm like, if I try to start explain to you what it's for, but I have told them we use these once a month because something happens in our bodies and it's very normal and very healthy. Um, so I try to use that kind of language with them in terms of normalizing things, and as they get older and as I get equipped with more of the language that's age appropriate. But for now, things like consent, I talk to them about because when they want to grab something, or the younger one is very lovey-dovey, so he'll just grab you and kiss your cheek. And I'm like, I'm your mom, I don't mind. But if you do that in a playground, you have to be careful. So now even if I try to take something, they're like, Mom, consent. I'm like, good, practice. So that's, yeah, they're learning, and God willing, it stays. The only thing we can do is pray on it. But yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
yeah, fingers crossed. So that's just what I try and do, even with periods. And I know the older one for sure knows about sex. He's 7, so I'm getting, I'm building up to have the conversation with him. So I just try and be real and upfront with them while still respecting that they're young, but also understanding that they're very aware, very, very aware, even of my own, even of the fact that, we're not a traditional family unit, and just not trying to hide that from them and just trying to explain. So yeah, I enjoy that part of motherhood. It's daunting, but I just treat them like young pals of mine. I'm like, listen, this is life. So
It is what it
even
is.
it is what it is.
No, I was just saying I mean, I get that for them from the family unit as well, because we also grew up around like parents who weren't together. So I get that whole concept. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's cool.
Oh, I love seeing you now. You see, this is a nice snapshot into the future. So thank you for.
You're welcome.
I'm like, they'll be
Yeah, they'll
fine.
be okay.
It'll all work out.
They'll be okay. So I was gonna ask because we don't have any brothers, or we didn't grow up with boys around us. And I think a big part of like normalizing periods is, like how you're talking about your mommy's diapers, being around. Because I think in the beginning, there's this thing of hiding, like you can't go to the toilet in school with people knowing that you're going to change your pad. So I was curious how that was, because I heard you mention you have brothers, and I guess your boys see your pads, or whatever. How was that growing up and comparing to like now as well?
Mm. I know growing up, for some reason, like my twin just seemed very freaked out because at some point he'd be like, "So you just bleed and you don't die," like the South Park episode. He's like, just make me understand. So he was very triggered for the longest time until I told him, Tim, grow up, stop it. It's fine, it's normal. But in his head, he just didn't understand. He's like, okay, but there's no cut. You're just bleeding. So he took a very long time to normalize it. He didn't want to talk about it. My older brother's always been a little bit of an intellect, so he just goes 1 plus 1 is 2, whatever. So his approach was very much like, yeah, this happens. I don't remember. I still think I remember hiding the products because there just seems to be a silence and a taboo, even after being told, congratulations, you're now a woman. You just didn't grow up hearing a lot of stories of people walking freely with their products, so you adapted to the shame and stigma around you. Until much later, until I think until I was much older, and just it just didn't bother me anymore if I needed to grab a product and go to the loo. And so now I'm trying to break that cycle of stigma with my son. So to make sure that if we're shopping, I'll still pick my product off the shelf for them to see. I'm picking it off the shelf, even as you're getting your bite, your biscuits or your pencils. I will pick my sanitary products. You will see them. You will ask again and say, "Oh, mom, you're getting your diapers." I say, "Yeah, I'm getting my mom diapers." So I'm trying to shift it so that when they see that, they know it's just and I keep telling them, yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember I told you it's a normal part of a woman's life. So if you see somebody picking this, just know that it's normal. The same way, recently we saw somebody who's living with disability or differently abled. And they were like, why are they walking like that? What's going on? And I said, yeah, I mean, their legs don't work like ours. So if you see that, it's also not something that you need to really stare at, even though somebody I know who's differently able was like, no, no, they can stare their kids. But I just try and make it seem like this is all a normal part of life so that they can. Or I had somebody come do my makeup who looks very androgynous. So I remember they were just staring at him. They were like, "Are you a boy or a girl?" you know and he's used to it, so he's just like, I think he just said something like, "I'm me," and I said, yeah, when you can choose when you're older, you can, because then Mali was like, then why are you wearing lipstick? you know and so trying not to shield, and also trying not to overly enforce, but just trying to be like, this is what it is, and as you get older, you'll kind of figure out what it is. But that's a very long winded answer to what Nyam asked. But yeah, basically just trying to normalize it for them.
In your advocacy, do you ever go towards, is it always geared towards women, or is there times where you go like towards the men, where it's, because I know a lot of households grew up where we have friends who would not, like, when they're going shopping, they would go with their mothers only or their sisters. It's not like you who had the conversation, let's say, with your brothers or your father being able to say congratulations. For us, being able to shop with our father was not the norm in a lot of houses. So does your advocacy also touch on educating men?
For sure. And I know the only way that's come out a little clearly is through things like my book or my podcast, is because my book also includes men. I mean, it's my first time. It has about 60 plus people that I profiled, and out of that about 8 or 9 of them are men. Just because, and these are male, I would call them male allies. These are men who are obviously, first of all, open enough to participate in the project, but who genuinely feel like, one of them is actually my dad. My dad is like one of the first feminists I've ever encountered. I realized later in life. I was like, oh, you're just a quiet feminist. That's what you are. Got it.
Nice.
Chinyamaji, but a lot of things were just um like, okay, yeah, of course you can do that. Of course you can pursue whatever you want to. You don't have to be limited by gender. So I profiled a few men, so that they could speak to other men, just to challenge that stigma and challenge the patriarchy and challenge the, because a lot of the stigma, not that it's fully by men, a lot of it is still perpetuated by women, but a lot of it is by men. And a lot of the reason why we still feel like there's a lot of secrecy and shame is because it's, if you have the leader, so to speak, of communities or the home kind of using that narrative, then everyone just adapts to it and says, oh, it must be a really bad, dirty thing. So we do try. So whenever I'm having conversations, I try to make sure, even with my podcast, which I'll be, doing again soon, I try to make sure every month there's at least, I
We'll
know
be waiting.
Gadoni
We'll
is
be
like,
waiting. We're here.
I've been like, where have you been? What are we doing?
I know,
But it's fine.
I was doing the inner work, but I was doing the inner work. But yeah, I try to at least make sure there's a man featured, in the month. So yes, to your question, I do try as much as possible to include men. If I'm asked to be on a panel, I'm like, hey, can I come with somebody or two people? One of them is a man, and just so that we can continue to normalize men having the conversation.
That's actually the perfect segue into what I was going to ask you, because I was going to ask more about your book, My First Time. Take us through that journey of writing it. Did it spark up any like emotions in you? Did it spark up any like aspects that you hadn't even thought about?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's here. I was like, today, let me behave and have it. Because usually,
You never have
Promo
it.
it, promo.
She never has
promo,
the book.
promo.
It's true.
Usually, I'm like, even on TV, and they're like, did you bring the book? And I'm awkwardly like, well,
You can find it at the bookstore.
but it was such a passion project. It was just because the conversation is still very difficult for a lot of people to have. And so I thought, what if we captured people's different, vast first time stories? What if we tried to be as inclusive as we possibly could, to have people who just look like, if a young girl or boy opens this book, more often than not, they might see somebody who looks like them or sounds like them. So, in terms of um, background, demographic, lifestyle, I tried to really make it as inclusive as possible. And that for me is one of the things I was really proud of doing. um, and you can only be as inclusive in a book. And the second version, which I've been meaning to release for like the last, I don't know, 1.5 years, now actually has women from the continent, which is so exciting. So we've profiled women from South Africa, Nigeria, so but in this one there was women who are differently abled, a woman who's visually impaired, a mother who's looking after a daughter who's got Down syndrome. We have a former street girl. We have a former inmate. But we also have like travel influencers, musicians. So just trying to say we all have a first time. And so it's okay to have a first time, but let's also shed light into the gaps, which is, what is it like menstruating behind bars? There's a whole issue around that. Or what is it like menstruating when you're doing sports. So it still also shed light into the gaps, but more than that, the idea was to normalize it and for everybody to feel like they can see themselves. This book came out just before COVID. We'd already started doing like book tours. It was supposed to be in so many libraries across the country. And now that plan is being reignited where we're trying to take it to as many schools so that it can at least live in as many school libraries as possible. We've already managed to do it in quite a number, which is exciting. And so now we want to do it in many more so that people can just always go there and see themselves in this book and say, it's okay. And the most beautiful thing is having a lot of parents, even fathers, say to me, oh my God, your book has been so helpful. When we learned that our daughter had started our period, we gave her the book and she came back and said to us, oh, Dad, this book is so nice. I learned that I can still play sports, that I can still travel. So that was the whole idea, is that people can still dream, but people can also face the fact that it's not necessarily always an easy journey, but you'll be okay if you can talk about it, if you can share about it, then ultimately you don't have to suffer in silence. So that's very fulfilling when parents say that, or aunties and uncles say, I just gave her a book because I didn't know what to say to her. I told her, read the book, then come and ask me questions. So that's the strategy they use.
Controversial question,
Yes.
but do you think our government could be doing more when it comes to this topic?
Oh, not controversial at all. Very necessary question.
I wasn't sure how comfortable you felt talking about it, Sasa.
I talk about periods all the time. It's blessing and a curse. But like first dates, what do you want to talk about? Let's talk about periods.
That's actually,
That will break the
yeah,
ice.
that's how you
So-
discover red flags.
At least you'll know if he's a good guy at the beginning. Don't waste your
This
time.
is true. It's a very good way to gauge, like whether there's, acceptance. Governments the world over could be doing so much more. And the reason that I'm still constantly on this topic or triggered by it, I know I'm like, a lot has changed, but a lot remains the same. But it's really rooted in sexism and patriarchy at the end of the day, um, because it's not prioritized at a national level in a lot of countries. And if it was seen as important, it would have been. It would have even been integrated as a development agenda because it does affect education, it affects performance, it affects so many things, and yet it's not given that kind of prioritization. So you have exceptions like Scotland that have, the first country that's going to make access free for everybody in the country. And I'm like, that's an example of prioritizing and caring enough about women and girls. That's an example of fighting the patriarchy. New Zealand, I think, is following, I think Australia. So slowly, these more inclusive, integrated, maybe more progressive parliaments are saying, actually, we've seen this issue happen for 10, 15 years. We have enough evidence to know that it's a problem. How do we provide products? Or how do we make them more accessible or affordable? Because it may not be sustainable to make it free in a country like Kenya. But how do you have the conversation about making it more accessible? So government could be doing more to do more data, more research, more integration into other issues. The biggest issue with this space is that it's very, everyone's kind of doing their own thing. And while it's important that there's a lot of voices out there, it's even more important if there's something cohesive and a cohesive call to action. But right now, it's so fragmented that also government is like, anyway, when you guys jipanga, let us know and we'll see what to do. So there's some conversations happening behind the scenes of how to have a more unified approach, but it may take time, but it's already happening so that there's a unified call to action, a unified push for government to increase budgetary allocation and access. So governments could be doing more, but they really need to care about us. They really need to know that us not going to school or us having to compromise our work is actually a problem and not just a woman's thing. And until that mindset is achieved, then we'll keep seeing this cycle repeat itself. You have to care enough about women and girls to do something for women and girls. So
Yeah, and I feel like there's still a bit of a taboo. It's still a bit of a taboo topic because I remember the senator when she went in and she had stained her pants, and it's just like, get out, you're embarrassing yourself or whatever. It's just like, but this happens all the time. I mean, I had to in primary school learn how to clean my dress or skirt and then turn it so that the wet side is in the front and move on with my life, And it's very much a part of who we are as women. And I just wish sometimes we could give it or open it more so that men can see and understand that this is just normal for us. We're not trying to like make a statement or cause a scene. It's just normal. So
It's just,
it's just the
it's
basic
life.
life. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, for sure.
So how do you feel like we can be better advocates like in our everyday life, me and my sisters who have all had periods forever and it's still going to continue.
We're all here. We all have periods.
Although Nyam is getting up there, I don't know if
Please calm
Don't be
down.
rude.
Please.
You and me both. Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. You and me both.
Anyway,
I'm like, I feel you,
I know.
perimenopause.
Yesterday was my birthday, and I had to borrow my mom's fan at the table and just be like, I think I'm starting to experience personal weather. Um,
Yeah, personal weather. I am borrowing that one.
yeah.
It's becoming so bad. I'm like, why are you sweating? What is going on? Then I'm like, oh, okay. So, in fact, the other day I was like, oh, I should hold a funeral for my periods when they end. So now I'm
Oh my
planning.
gosh.
that would be a
Also
A whole
fun party.
fun. Please invite us. That would be so
Make sure
fun.
make sure your cake is red velvet, please.
yeah, like no pun intended. Just
And
have a
shaped
red
like a
velvet
coffin.
cake.
It's a coffin red velvet. It was so good.
Coffee and red.
It would be so
Oh
good.
my God.
So good.
I thought about it the other day. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a funeral for my periods. Yay, I have a plan.
Perfect.
So I think I still have like maybe 3, 4 years, but it's not that far off. But how do we create more acceptance? I think we really can't amplify enough. When we think about how certain things were, I don't know if the word is combated, well, how certain things were addressed. I'll use an example which I've used, which I've heard used before, so I can safely use it here. But example, for example, like HIV/AIDS, when there was a push for tolerance and acceptance, it was everywhere. You couldn't escape it, you couldn't run away from it, and suddenly it became a norm. Um, there has to be that level of investment on a national level to just say, we're going to do a really full on campaign where we're going to invest time into community or mainstream media, digital, billboards, whatever it is. We're going to do an entire year where we talk about how normal this thing is from primary school all the way. Um, in the meantime, we just have to do things like what you guys are doing right now, which is just keep having the conversation. I had a back and forth with my videographer the other day when he was asking me, what can be done. I'm like, but I feel like we've talked about this for so long, Moss. What do you mean? And he was just trying to tell me, you see it that way because you're in the space, but for some of us, we just don't know how to plug in. So obviously, there's a disconnect and gap somewhere. So I think just a lot more of us need to be having the conversation, normalizing it the way I'm trying to do it with my sons, which is just as somebody gets older or when you're with a group of friends, male or female, when you're out with somebody, when you're in a family, wherever it is, when the conversation comes up, it's to just have a conversation about it, not to nip it in the, not to like try and stop it or fill it with all kinds of stigma, but to say, okay, yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about periods. You'll always find somebody who needs to be convinced that it's normal, which triggers me, but it is what it is. Um, but it's just to keep advocating. And what you guys are doing right now is already a form of advocacy. It's having the conversation. And so that's why I keep having the conversation. There's a lot of incredible menstrual champions that I either work with or I know. So we just try and co-amplify each other's work and um, just try our best. And I know there's a national event for Menstrual Hygiene Day happening, which is also a big step. The thing I've seen over the last few years is more mainstreaming. The issue is that it just happens on Menstrual Hygiene Day on May 28th, and then there's silence until like Day of the Girl. Then there's silence until Women's Day. So the idea is let's make a case for it all the time, but to have a national event with possibly a cabinet secretary, that's progress. We just need a lot more of that, but we need it at every single level and in every single industry and institution. So do what you can with what you have, give where you can with what you have. There's always somebody near you or two people separated from you who needs products. And even though people are like, oh, it's not sustainable to keep giving, it would make a really big difference between her being able to go to work or take her child to school. So those are the little low hanging fruits, which is give where you can, talk about it where you can and when you can, and just spread the word and kind of push for it in your circles and let your circles push it in other circles. And then before you know it, there's a groundswell of conversation, which essentially gets us to where we need to be.
Super.
Can you highlight any NGOs or organizations that are doing this work? Maybe some people want to support, or just people who are doing the work of spreading awareness.
Yeah, gosh, there's so many. I'll try and list the ones who I know are spreading awareness very consistently and intentionally. There's Heals for Pads, they're amazing. There's and Heels for Pads are doing it really well on digital, but also on ground. Superb CBO, the founder Yasmin is incredible. She's grassroots led. She's talked about her own story. That was her reality, not having access, and now she's running a CBO, and she's even doing a 28-day campaign right now on her social media. She's incredible. There's Pad Mad, which is led by Madhvi. They do reusable products, and they've really scaled. There's Zana Africa, who are also, they've been in the space for possibly over a decade. They even have their own line of products. Yeah, so those four that I've mentioned, it's been so easy because they're constantly amplifying, and not just amplifying online, but also on the ground doing distributions. But there's quite a number. There's Neville is somebody I'll mention because he's a thought leader in the space, and as a man, he's one of the biggest champions from the continent. He's a friend and a mentor, and he's also always doing the work. So there's quite a number. I'm happy to send them to you, and you guys can maybe publish the handles.
And
But
let's
there's
not
so many.
forget Miss Janet Mbugua herself.
Yes.
Don't worry, I have her handles. Don't worry.
Yes, Inua Dada. And our page is actually trying to amplify a lot of these people's work. So I know during the week, our stories will have what are other people doing so that we can drive traffic to what other people are doing and how you can support. So, yeah, there's a lot of incredible people doing a lot. There's new people coming in all the time. So there's people really trying their best to make a difference. It's just not super cohesive and unified, but in the meantime, it's working because they're doing what they can with what they have. So that's what's important.
It's
Yeah.
progress.
It's progress, and progress is fragile, and progress takes time. So you just have to keep pushing.
Wow, it's fragile and takes time. Love it. So, as part of our podcast, normally, we have a few segments we do, and we want you to participate in one. And the one we have chosen for you is On My Wall. And On My Wall is basically, you know how when you were young and you'd stick people on your wall? So, it's that version, but virtual, fictional, a fictional on your wall. But so, if you could pick someone to be on your wall right now, who would it be?
Are we thirst trapping, or we're talking deep?
Do
Because
what you
like,
Can be
want. Listen,
anything.
we've done everything. We've had shirtless men, we've had ourselves, we've had everything. So it's whatever you want. Go off.
got it. Was trying to understand the assignment. But right now, and I just did a video, well, not just now, but when I was in Embo a few weeks ago, that week had been so fulfilling for me, because I was just really feeling the power of African women. And so in one week, I'd met like President Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, Gracia Michelle, and all these people. And I was just like, oh
Wow.
my God. So on my wall, for sure, is a lot of these heroes. And even as I said in the video, I didn't realize it back then, but I looked at these women. I was constantly following women like Wangari Maathai because they spoke to me, and I was like 10 or 11, but they spoke to me in a way that felt so, I don't know, it was incredible. It stayed with me. So when I met her, I was just like, I'm just going to faint because I followed you since I was a kid. So I'm most starstruck and most like on my wall right now is a lot of these African women because from the time I was really young, I was kind of following them, and to be able to not just hold space with them, but to see how they continue to shape and influence the lives of African women, they're just like my rock stars. So that's this week. Last week it was shirtless D'Angelo and Lenny Kravitz. So
Yes.
every
Love
week
it.
is every week is different. This week,
Balance.
We gotta balance it out.
Balance.
Oh, I was talking about D'Angelo's Untitled video last week, and I was just like, hey, 20, 23. I even know it's 23 years old. And I'm still like, it's a masterpiece.
You're still there being like, swoon.
And just understanding what was behind the story and how there was a lot of depth to what he was trying to do and everything, but still just a masterpiece.
It
So
makes you
last
have
week they were
personal
on my
weather, huh?
yes, yes. The older
Personal
you get, the
weather.
more you're like, hey, 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 hey. So those ones on my wall last week, I would have been like, let me tell you guys something. This is who's on my wall. But this week it's our aunties who are shaping the
Our house
continent. That's who's
women.
on my wall.
Okay. We'll take you can have two walls. You can put both. We don't have
We
to
get
change them.
inspiration from everywhere.
Yeah.
It's true. This is true. And I've learned to love that as I get older. I really, really love it's actually what you've said. I love the balance of you can appreciate without necessarily objectifying, okay, you're having fun with it or whatever, but as you're older, there's just a different appreciation to just that kind of conversation.
Mm.
For sure.
And then on the other hand, it's also the perspective of what it means or what it means for what these women have done. It's just always different, but I love that. I love that about growing older and getting more comfortable in your skin and comfortable with your perspective and not needing to hide it or question it. You're just like, no, he looks amazing. You're thirsty, it's fine. You're normal. I'm proud of these women and that's amazing. It's normal. So yeah, it's the balance.
You know, the funny thing is when you were talking about those women, I always think about now as a professional and I'm older, how difficult it is to get to the places that they got. So it's even that much more inspirational to be like, wow, you guys are reaching like high tables. You know what I mean? Like you are sitting at some very important tables
And fighting the
and I know just
patriarchy
as an
at that
African,
level.
exactly, as an African woman getting to that level, it took a lot.
It took a lot, and what's amazing about these specific ones is that they're intentionally holding space for other African women. Because the session I attended with President Sirleaf Johnson was part of her program where she and her team actually mentor up and coming women in who have political ambitions. That's kind of rare to say. And even the little interaction we had, she was just like, you guys who are in this room, you need to know that we're leaving it to you. So figure it out. So that's what's also more inspiring is just holding space and saying, come on, you guys, you've got this. And not, for me, that's what's powerful and beautiful about them still being with us and kind of not even saying, but insisting that we take up space. It's an amazing thing to see. So, yeah.
Now, for the people who want to find you, plug yourself. Let them know where we can find you.
Plug yourself.
Yes.
I'm pretty. I have a website which I need to update. So the one I'll say is I'm pretty active on Instagram at official Janet Mbugua. I just feel like I like my community on Instagram, to be honest. I feel like tunaelewana, we get each other. It's a pretty safe space. So I really, really, they've just seen me evolve and they're just like, just let her be. um, so mostly my name, official Janet Mbugua, whether that's on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. My website is officialjanetmbugua.com. It needs to be updated. I'm not on Twitter, but my foundation is on Twitter. So mostly Instagram and my website. And yeah, you
What's the
find me there.
foundation's
And
name?
oh, Inuadada, just INUADADA across all social media. That's the name of and also the foundation website is inuadadafoundation.org.
You
So
also have a
that's where you can find
podcast.
me. This is true. You see, this is why Gadon is like, wow, you had one job, Janet. One, just one.
I'm gonna make that podcast happen. It doesn't matter if you try. That one I'm not
I
I'm not
know.
letting
No,
that.
I'm recording. I'm recording on
Yeah.
Wednesday, so I just need to. I'm recording a few episodes, and I'm gonna keep going. But my first time is the sort of like the menstrual health arm of Inwadada Foundation. It's called My First Time. So it's a resource for all things menstrual health. So there's the book, which is available at Textbook Center in Nairobi, still available in quite a number of stores. They told me the other day. And I love that people are still buying it because they normally give me very upfront feedback. They're like, no, 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 it moves pretty well, especially during back to school or menstrual hygiene month or women's month. So thank you to everyone who's still purchasing the book. The e-version will be available soon, I promise. I know I've said it for like 2 years, but it's coming. In the meantime, the podcast will be out as well. So just my first time stories across social media is where you'll find, yeah, but it's an arm of Inua Dada. So if you're following Inua Dada and Janet Mbugua, you're following my first time as well.
Incidentally, I just remembered that I have a friend who has a 13-year-old, and she invited us to a period party, and someone actually brought your book as one of the gifts. So we all wore red, had red treats, and told her about our first time. But I think, like, just now thinking about it, I'm like, that's a perfect gift also for those kinds of situations. Yeah.
Thank you. And I love all of you guys who are doing period parties. It's the greatest gift you can give to girls and have sometimes parties where there's boys. I know that's, it's something that can be done. It's just as Africans, it's trying to think through all that. But it's happening more and more. There's a lot of period parties happening. I think there's one or two mixed period parties happening. So that makes me really happy. And I'm so glad that the book can be a part of that. So yeah, it's exciting.
Super.
Thank you so much for making the time. I just wanted to let you know that, as you mentioned, all of those African women, you're exactly that for a girl who is growing up now.
No.
So
For sure.
thank you for being that person, for taking up the space, not only in like this world of period advocacy, but also like in media and everything. Like you're the people who I used to look at and be like, oh, I want to be that babe, you know? And I did journalism and then I didn't do anything with that degree, but you're the people.
But you're doing something now. This is your
I guess it
journalism.
is.
This
It
is it.
is.
This is
But
it.
you're the
No,
people,
it is.
genuinely. So you are on the wall with all of them. So don't just put them on your wall. Know that you're right there beside them as well.
Thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot. I appreciate it. Trying to do the inner work so that I can appreciate it more. And that's also been a gift, is just like just leaning into the fact that we're all a work in progress. We all have traumas we need to heal. All of that has just, it's made me, I think, a lot less apologetic and um yeah, just kind of saying, you know what? Yeah, you've had your moments, you've had your highs and lows. There's some BS you need to own up to, but there's also great things you've done, so just lean into it and just do the work. So that's been the best part of the last sort of like year and a half to 2 years, is doing the inner work to just feel the gratitude that kind of comes out. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you guys. This was
It
fun.
was great
This
having
was
you, actually.
awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Awesome.
cool. Thank you for making time.
That was such a great interview. I hope you guys took out a lot from it, just like we did. There's a lot of great resources she left, so we're obviously going to have those in our show notes and linked on our social media. Gadani, where can they find us?
You can find us at OK Kiasi, that's OKAYKIASI, on all social media platforms. And if you want, you can write us an email at okkiasi@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you next week. As always, I'm Shiko.
I'm Yam.
And I'm Gavani.
Have a great week, y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.